Okay, this video is going to show you how to get my easy expense tracker and then also how it's designed to be used. So the first thing is obviously click the link in the comments below. That'll take you to my website, and when you get there you'll see right here at the very top is the sign up for the free easy to use expense tracker. You just put in your name and then your email address. And click Get It Now. That'll take you to a thank you page, and if you want you can just click back to the main page. But now whatever email you put in, that's where you'll get the link sent to you. So you should get an email look something like this, and there's a link to a couple different links in here. One link is to a blog article I've written about why budgets don't work, very similar to probably the video you've already seen, why budgets don't work. There's a link to the course that I offer, and then of course here you can access the Google Sheet. You simply click here and it will pop open a new tab with the easy to use expense tracker. Now first thing to notice is that it is view only. So first thing you've got to do to be able to use this is you've got to create a copy. So just go to File and click Make a Copy. And you can name it whatever you like. We'll just call this My Easy Expense Tracker. And you can decide where to save it. In this case we'll just put it in My Drive, the default location. And now you see it'll open a new tab. And now it no longer has that view only. This is a copy, this is your copy, and you can make whatever changes you want to this. So let's go ahead and close the original, and now we're just going to work inside the copy. So a couple things to notice. Down here at the bottom there's a couple of tabs. The first tab is the tracker itself. The second tab is some simple instructions. If you ever forget what's supposed to be in what different area or how it's supposed to work, you can come here and just see some simple instructions. The tracker sheet itself is actually fairly simple. Up here at the top you've got your starting balance. Now whatever period of time you're using, whether it's you're tracking for a week or a month or what have you, and I recommend you don't do any periods longer than a month. So let's say just for the sake of this demo that we're doing it month by month, and so the first of the month we have a starting balance of $15.78. The ending balance is how much you have at the end of the period. So in this case, let's say by the end of the month we've got $3,500. The income gain is whether you're spending more money than you're making or making more money than you're spending. So in this case, you'll see our total income was $3,047. Our total expenses was $2,288, and that means we had a gain of $758. Now if it was the other way around, we would see a negative number here. We're actually losing money. And then the error is how far off you are with your transactions. So you have a starting balance. You add to that the monthly income you've had. You subtract from that the monthly expenses, and that should give you your ending balance. Now, if your ending balance here is different than that calculation, it's going to show up here, in this case 1163. So in this case, if we were to reduce our ending balance to the more appropriate level, say $1,200 less, $2,300, that would get us a lot closer to being on track. Now we're under by $36.76. So if we did that again, $36.76, you can see we have zero error. Now you don't want to do it that way. You don't want to try to make it right. You just want to go to your balances and see what your ending balance is for the month and put that in here, and then see if there's any error. And if there is, you know you've missed some transactions. You can either go back and look for them. But keep in mind, the first few months you do this, you're going to have some error. The trick is to try to keep your errors below $10. And one way that I find really helps this is to try to use cash as little as possible. Very hard to track where your cash goes. So that's this top portion here. Now in the income, that's just basically any sources of income you've had throughout the month, whether that's paychecks or your interest income from your bank accounts, or maybe you have some miscellaneous income. You got a birthday present for $45 or what have you. Whatever income is coming in, track it here. Now, there's only a few entries available in this, about 8 actually. And to start with, that probably won't be much of a problem. Later on, as you're gaining more income sources, that'll probably be more problematic, but you'll also probably be graduating to a more robust system by then than the easy-to-use simple tracker. So hopefully that won't be an issue. If it ever is, let me know and I'll help you come up with one that works. Or you can just add rows and then just make sure you don't mess up the formulas over here. On the monthly expenses, this is where you track everything that you're spending. And I've got just some defaults in here so you can see what that looks like. And over here on this side is the categories that you're spending in and how much you're spending in each category. So let me strip out the sample data and we'll just try going through this and see what it looks like. So perhaps it's the first of the month and you've got your paycheck for $2,500. And we're just going to call this pay. Now, on your expenses, usually you have rent or a mortgage or something like that. So let's call it January rent. And we'll say that's $850. And we'll call that category rent. Now, as soon as I do that, notice up here, it adds a category and it tells you what the total expenses are. If I were to have another one, for some reason I had multiple rent payments in a month, which probably wouldn't for rent, but just for the sake of demonstration, if I put in another rent, you'll see that it totals it up here. So you still only have the one category for rent, but you get the total expenses you've spent in that. So let's make it something a little more realistic. Let's say on the 4th, we went out and got groceries. So maybe we went to, I don't know, Walmart. And we spent $140 on groceries. And you'll see again, we got a new category up here in the total amount. We probably have a car payment maybe, so on the 10th of January, perhaps we paid a car payment. And these descriptions just need to be descriptive enough for you. You want to be able to go back when you review this and see what it was you're spending, where you're spending your money and what you're spending it on. So whatever you really need in order to make that happen, that's what you should put down here in the descriptions. The amount obviously is just whatever amount you end up paying. And then the category, just create as you go. So maybe this one we're going to call car payment. It really doesn't matter. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it auto payment or auto loan or car loan or whatever. And again, it adds a new category up here in the total amount of the expenses. All the while up here it's tracking how far off we are in the error. Well, in this case we don't have an ending balance yet, so let's get rid of that too. Well, I guess we probably would have an ending balance. You could say you have an ending balance, but you probably want to put this in at the end of the month. I suppose you could do it iteratively throughout the month just to see if you're still tracking. So in this case, you know, maybe we look at our account and we see, oh, we've got $1,500 in there. And we started with a balance of 0, so we're $325 off in this case. And we're keeping our money. Not for long. Let's keep going. And let's have, I don't know, just a ridiculously expensive one. Let's say on the 15th of January we bought a whole lot of video games. Alright, so video games, what are those going for? Like 40 bucks a pop or something? So let's say that runs us a nice cool $1,000. And we want to call this, I don't know what you want to call it, maybe entertainment, electronics, or if you just have that big of a video game budget, you might want to just call it video games. Alright, and then let's see, we went out to eat at a very nice restaurant, so went to Tray Food, and we had a big meal there with a big party of 8 people. It cost us about $550, and we'll call that one restaurants. Silly examples, but nonetheless it shows you how this works. And again, so now we have all of our categories up here, different categories. If we did more restaurants, went to Taco Bell, and we spent $25 there. And again, we see it adds it up here in our restaurants for us. Now our income gain is negative. We're losing money. We're spending more money than we're making, so we can see that here. And our error is way off because we haven't been keeping track. So now I suppose we should say we're probably about negative $400 to be on track. Oops. Put that in the wrong place. Ending balance, negative 400. There we go. So that was a good demonstration too. If I try to edit one of these that has formulas, it's going to complain at me. I'm going to try putting in some numbers here, and it's going to tell me, hey, you're trying to edit part of this sheet that you shouldn't be changing. So when that happens, make sure you hit cancel. And in the worst case scenario, if you end up taking it and doing something silly and putting something where you didn't want to, then you can always just do a Control Z, or come up here and do an edit undo. See, Control Z, and that'll put it back into the formula you want. And then notice when you're over here, these are the formulas that are being used up here, and this is what helps calculate all of that. Same with this one. This is what creates all the categories. There's only one over here. The rest of these just show what it is on the categories. In order to do that, you only need one unique formula. And so ultimately, that's how you use this sheet to track stuff. Now, the magical part is when you're coming over through here at the end of the month, you've got all the different categories of things you've spent your money on, and you've got what your total expenses are. So for each one of these, you might look and see, did you get value for that? So maybe for the car payment, you love your car, it's a good car, it gets you where you need to go, and yeah, you're happy with paying that. So fine, you don't really think you want to spend more money on a car, but you're happy with what you're paying. So I would suggest using pluses, minuses, and zeros or X's either way. So I might stick an X here just to say, yeah, I'm happy with that, that's fine. Now my entertainment, I bought 25 video games and I only played like 3 of them, right? So that's not a very good value. I ended up spending a lot more money on those things than I actually got value for it. So, maybe I want to put a minus sign in there to just kind of indicate to myself that I should probably spend less on that form of entertainment or on video games, or however you want to say that. The groceries, we bought a few groceries, but not a whole lot. We probably should do that more often, and maybe get some more groceries and eat stuff at home. Okay, Google's complaining about that one, so it wants to have under pluses a little apostrophe in front of it to make sure it knows it's a comment. You don't have to use a plus. You can use anything you want, whatever indicates to you that, hey, this is an area where maybe we should be spending more money. And again, maybe this one is fine. You're happy with your rent. You don't really want to spend more, but you're not going to spend less. And then on the restaurants, maybe that Tray Food, you barely remember going there, and it wasn't all that great anyway, so maybe you didn't really enjoy that one so much. And you put a minus here. And how you track this isn't really important. The important part is that you're going back over your expenses and you're seeing what you spent in each category. And what you're going to find is that you're probably going to be surprised with some of the categories and the amount of money going into them. There's three things that generally tend to happen. First is you find money you're spending that you didn't realize you're spending. This is becoming more and more a common problem as people subscribe to things and purchase services on their credit cards, and then they're not really tracking their credit card bills. And so as you go through your credit card receipts and you're putting them in here, you may notice, wow, I still have a Spotify subscription I haven't used in months. Let's go ahead and cancel that, and you're going to get some money back. Another thing that tends to happen is, this is the real big one for me, is you may find that you're spending a lot more money in an area that you didn't realize. And the big one that I was doing was actually eating out. I'd get home from work, I'd be tired, I wouldn't feel like making anything, I really didn't have anything in the house, I didn't want to go out and buy groceries. So I just, the heck with it, let's go eat out. And so what I found after I started tracking for the first month, what I was spending an ungodly amount of money on fast food and restaurants. And the funny thing is, I couldn't even remember eating at those places. I mean, I could remember maybe the last two that I'd been to, and all the rest, no idea. Just there was no value there for me whatsoever. I was simply being lazy and spending my money on stuff I didn't care for because I felt like it was more convenient. So that led to the third thing that tends to happen, and that is, as you recognize these things, as you bring them to your forefront of your consciousness and see what you're really spending money on, maybe it's sweaters in the back of your closet that never get worn. I don't know. That tends to be a popular one. Or another one that I've seen is bags. A friend of mine had an amazingly enormous bag collection, just loved bags, but never used them and really wasn't getting value out of them. And on realizing that, stopped spending so much money on bags. Just got a few really nice ones that were awesome, and then stopped and kept and appreciated those ones and valued them. So that's what tends to happen when you're recognizing where your money is going. You will automatically start making adjustments without having to struggle, without having to try to stay below some magical budget number that you feel like you should be spending less than. You're just going to start naturally adjusting, provided, and here's the important part, or one of the more important parts, is that you can do this without judgment. When you go through this at the end of the month and you see, oh my goodness, I spent $300 on shoes, and I probably shouldn't have spent more than $50. That was way more, whatever the case may be. You might have bought a bunch of tools and not realizing how much money you're spending on tools, and buying tools that you don't necessarily need. If they need them, obviously, great, you're getting value for those. If you don't need them, we often tend to have things that we purchase we do it automatically without really thinking about what we're doing. And that's where this consciousness and awareness really comes into play, is knocking out that automatic spending behavior. And as you notice it, don't judge. Understand this spending habit is your behavior. This is who you are right now, and these are the things that you are currently valuing. Recognize that. These are your current values. It may not be the things you want to value. That's okay. That's going to change, provided you can do this with an open mind, without judgment. So next tricky part that comes up with this is oftentimes we're not doing this alone. We may have a spouse or a significant other that is helping us with our spending, and we're using same accounts. And so the tendency may be to tend to judge the other person for what they're valuing that's different from what you would value. And an example of this would be me and my spouse. I tend to value tools. I don't think much of going out and spending $250 for a very nice hand tool that I know is going to last me the rest of my life. This is not a value that she has. She's not going to go out and spend $250 on a tool. But she has to understand that is a value I have. Likewise, she went out and got a very nice bag, Louis Vuitton, I believe it was. and it was a fairly expensive bag. When I heard how much it was, I thought, wow, that's an amazingly large number of dollars you're spending on a bag. But same logic. This is a bag that was going to not only last her lifetime, but she was going to pass on down to her kid. Um, and so she saw the value in that. I did not. That's okay. We don't have to value the same things, but we do have to allow each other the freedom to value the things that we value. So that non-judgment has to carry over. If you're doing this together with somebody else, it has to carry over to that other person as well. You can have discussions about it. You can discuss why it is that they value those, or if they value those. Are they getting the value from those? But you can't judge somebody for what they value. Don't judge yourself. And if you're sharing your budget with somebody else, if you're sharing your expenses and your accounts, you can't judge them either, because it's going to cause the same problem either way. Judgment tends to lead to denial, and denial tends to reinforce the same behaviors. You can't move on to new behaviors if you're sticking yourself with the same old behaviors, because you're denying the fact that you've done what you've actually done. So I hope that makes sense. That's a very key, important part of this. So tracking it is good. The key part of this is in the review and understanding what you're spending your money on, and are you valuing the things that you're actually spending your money on? Are these the things that you think you value? Understand that you're currently valuing them by your behavior, but you may want to change your behavior to value other things. So for example, maybe you think you should be putting more money in your retirement fund and not spending as much money on video games, which is fine. So look where your current values are. Decide, do you want more in your retirement fund? Do you want less from your video games? And just recognizing that will drive those behavior changes. They may be a little slow to start, but they'll quickly start changing. And so when you're doing your spending, don't try to do it budget-wise. When a budget, you're setting limits and you're trying to stay within those limits. But that doesn't tell you who you are. And in order for this to work, you have to be consciously aware by your behaviors who you are. So when you first start doing this, spend naturally as you normally would. Now that may cause a little bit of a fallback on your finances to start with. You may find you're spending more money than you're making. That'll quickly change. That's a very short temporary setback. Once you realize where your money is going and how it's going there, you're going to start making fairly quick adjustments and getting your spending in line with the things you truly value. Or on the other side of things, I suppose the other way to say it would be you're going to be getting your values in line with the way you're spending, if that's the case. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I will do my best to clarify anything that was clear as mud during this presentation.